As I drifted towards unconsciousness, my husband's voice pierced through the haze. Exiting the hospital after a visit, I was blindsided by a speeding car. It struck me before I could react, leaving me to grapple with intense pain and fading awareness. Amidst the turmoil, my husband's cryptic mention of inheritance puzzled me. Why was he even there? Struggling to piece together his words, I slipped into darkness without glimpsing him again. Days later, as I regained consciousness, I was met with the sight of my husband on TV, playing the role of the grieving spouse. His facade of sympathy enraged me. He was manipulating emotions while concealing his true intentions. Determined not to let him prevail, I resolved to seek justice. My name is Jennifer Brown, a 29-year-old music teacher with a lifelong passion for the piano. Despite dreams of becoming a pianist, the competitive nature of music college overwhelmed me, leading me to settle for a teaching career. Currently, I find fulfillment at a local middle school where I not only educate but also lead the choir club, earning the endearing title of teacher from my students. My life took a turn when I met Robert, my college sweetheart turned husband. Initially, we basked in happiness, both personally and professionally. However, our bliss faded as Robert's flaws surfaced. His erratic work schedule at a bar, coupled with his negligent attitude towards household chores, strained our relationship. Arguments became commonplace, and our once vibrant connection dwindled. Robert's charm, once captivating, now seemed shallow. His popularity in college had blinded me to his faults. Despite my initial infatuation, I questioned my decision to marry him. Yet, amidst our turmoil, I acknowledged that every person carries both virtues and vices. I rationalized that perhaps it was acceptable for someone with charm to possess flaws, so I chose to endure it. About 6 months into our marriage, Robert, who often spent even his days off away from home, appeared unsettled one morning. As I finished tidying up after breakfast, he beckoned me over. "Jennifer, the bar's been struggling lately. I'm short on cash. Can you lend me some?" he asked. I couldn't help but question his financial predicament. Despite claiming a reduced salary, his income should have covered our expenses comfortably. His explanation for the shortage sounded dubious. "Are you that strapped for cash? What have you been spending it on?" I inquired, frustration evident in my tone. Robert stumbled over his words, attempting to justify his request. He claimed it was for research purposes, studying other bars' menus, but his explanation lacked conviction. "How much do you need?" I relented, already feeling weary of the exchange. "Just $200 would do," he replied eagerly, embracing me in gratitude. Despite my irritation at his opportunism, I found myself succumbing to his charm once more. I handed over the money, his embrace momentarily softening my exasperation. It seemed that despite our constant arguments, his affection still held sway over me. However, as time passed, Robert's requests for money became more frequent and demanding. The amounts escalated, and before long, I found myself handing over as much as $1,000 monthly. As a teacher, such financial strain was daunting, and my savings dwindled rapidly. I mustered the courage to broach the topic of repayment, only to be met with resistance. Robert dismissed my concerns, insisting that the money was rightfully his. Frustration simmered as I struggled to balance our expenses on my own. Confronting him one morning before he left for work, I dared to raise the issue again, only to be met with a dismissive attitude. The strain of supporting him financially was becoming increasingly unbearable. "I can't help it. My salary is too low. You could save a bit, like cutting down on eating out," Robert suggested, defending his financial struggles. Frustrated, I retorted, "I'm doing that for the bar. Are you trying to interfere with my work? Then sell your piano. That'll bring in good money." With those words, he left the house. My piano, a cherished gift from my father at the age of 2, was as precious to me as life itself. As a music teacher, I needed it for practice, and there was no way I could part with it. Robert, however, casually suggested selling it, callously disregarding its sentimental value. This suggestion further strained our already fragile relationship, and we fell into a stony silence. The rift between Robert and me deepened, and our marital bonds were on the verge of collapse. Contemplating divorce, I found myself in a challenging situation. However, a sudden incident shifted my focus. While playing the piano one day, a sharp pain shot through my wrist like an electric shock. Visiting the hospital, I received a diagnosis of tendinitis, with a warning that surgery might be necessary if it worsened. Faced with the possibility of losing my ability to play and jeopardizing my job, I felt a growing sense of desperation. A referral to a larger hospital in the next town was given, and during the consultation, anxiety weighed heavily on me. The doctor, after examining the x-rays, offered a glimmer of hope, advising me to rest my hand for a week and observe any changes. Relieved that surgery wasn't immediately necessary, I left the hospital with a newfound optimism. However, just as I was about to leave the hospital parking lot, tragedy struck. A speeding car careened towards me, and despite attempts to escape, I felt an immense impact. Voices clamored around me as I slipped into unconsciousness. Amidst the fading consciousness, a familiar voice mentioned something about an inheritance plan. Struggling to identify the speaker, I succumbed to darkness. 3 days later, I awoke in a hospital room, greeted by intense pain. The doctor reassured me, explaining that I had been hit by a car after my last visit, and concern had mounted during my 3-day unconsciousness. Learning that 3 days had passed since the accident left me in shock, though I couldn't articulate my surprise. The nurse and doctor proceeded to elucidate my condition, a victim of a car collision that resulted in multiple complex fractures, rendering me confined to absolute rest, not even permitted to sit up. Enduring this enforced stillness seemed monotonous, prompting the nurse to suggest watching TV while lying down for some diversion. As the TV was switched on for my comfort, the coincidental coverage of my accident played out. Despite the nurse's offer to change the channel, I insisted on watching, fixated on the news. The report disclosed that a woman named Amelia, the driver who struck me, had been arrested for dangerous driving causing injury. It all clicked into place. The voice mentioning an inheritance during the accident was Robert's. He had intentionally orchestrated the collision for financial gain. However, the news only portrayed him as a friend in Amelia's car, withholding the darker truth. As the spotlight shifted to Robert, he claimed ignorance, expressing shock and remorse over the unforeseen accident. His tearful interview triggered my anger. The accident was undoubtedly a result of Robert's scheme, and yet, he continued to play the part of a caring husband. Determined not to let him get away with it, I vowed revenge. 4 hours after regaining consciousness, Robert entered the room with relief, attempting to hold my hand. I rebuffed his touch, revealing the excruciating pain I was enduring, all because of him. Unfazed, he tried to lighten the mood, offering to buy me something to eat. I coldly rejected his gesture, demanding that he leave the room immediately. His confusion escalated as I accused him of scheming the accident for inheritance. Caught off guard, Robert feigned innocence, questioning my accusations. I countered with evidence, his recent high-value life insurance policy taken out a month before the accident. Despite his attempt to justify it as a gesture of goodwill toward a struggling friend, Amelia, an insurance saleswoman, who he claimed was in dire straits, I remained skeptical, pointing out the inconsistency of affording insurance premiums while allegedly struggling to pay living expenses. Even though Robert insisted it was for my benefit, I couldn't bring myself to trust him. I challenged him with the notion that he wouldn't mind if the insurance money never materialized. I need quite a lot of money for surgery and hospitalization. I'll use the insurance money we received, so please transfer the entire amount to my account, I requested, confronting Robert about our financial needs. His reaction was unexpected. All of it? Is that much really necessary? He queried, visibly uneasy. I explained the urgency, noting that if the insurance wasn't enough, he would have to cover the remaining expenses. Robert's expression shifted from concern to disbelief. He muttered to himself, his discomfort evident. Sensing the tension, The nurses observed closely as I whispered to Robert, revealing the truth. It's useless to lie anymore. There's almost no savings because I'm alive, and there's zero inheritance. His reaction was telling. Zero inheritance? What do you mean? He retorted, clearly shaken by the revelation. I didn't hold back, highlighting the reality of our financial situation. As a public servant, he earned well. Yet he seemed oblivious to our financial struggles. His disbelief turned to frustration, and he struggled to comprehend the gravity of the situation. In the face of his denial, my anger flared. You won't get away with this easily. You'll be arrested too if they find out you were an accomplice, I warned, my resolve unwavering. But Robert remained defiant, dismissing my accusations with arrogance. His indifference only fueled my determination to expose his true nature. I waited patiently, knowing that justice would prevail. Suddenly, the door burst open, revealing men in suits, the police. Confusion clouded the room as Robert's facade crumbled. I had called them to uncover the truth about the accident, and now the moment of reckoning had arrived. As the police seized his mobile phone, the evidence against him became irrefutable. Robert's attempts to deflect blame dissolved into desperation. His facade shattered, leaving behind the truth he tried so hard to conceal. In the end, justice prevailed, and Robert's true colors were exposed for all to see. As he kicked the bed in frustration, I sighed, knowing that the moment of revenge had arrived. I faced Robert squarely and turned to the police with conviction. The woman currently arrested, Amelia, is his mistress. They've been close for quite a while, I declared, determined to reveal the truth. Robert's reaction was predictable. Don't say such nonsense without evidence, he retorted defensively. But evidence was exactly what I had. There is evidence. I hired a private detective agency to investigate you. We have photos of you with Amelia and records of your activities over the past few months, I revealed, holding nothing back. The truth was clear. Robert's frequent requests for money had raised suspicions, prompting me to delve deeper. The investigation unearthed his affair and extravagant spending on drinks and hotels. With Amelia's face etched in my memory, I was certain of his involvement in the accident the moment I saw her on the news. As the police continued their investigation, Robert's composure wavered, his once confident demeanor crumbling under the weight of evidence against him. So you ran out of money I gave you and planned this accident to get the inheritance and insurance money, planning to live with her. Isn't that right? I confronted him, refusing to let him evade responsibility. Robert's silence spoke volumes. Despite the gravity of the situation, he refused to relinquish the insurance money, revealing his true motives. Even as the skepticism around him grew, he remained steadfast in his denial. She's my friend. It's natural to be concerned. He tried to justify, but his words fell on deaf ears. The pieces of the puzzle fell into place. Robert's unexplained presence at the hospital on the day of the accident raised further suspicion. His desperate attempts to deflect blame only confirmed his guilt. As the police prepared to escort him to the station, Robert's facade crumbled. "Help me, Jennifer. I'm not guilty. Forgive me," he pleaded, his desperation palpable. But forgiveness was not forthcoming. "How can I forgive someone who did this for money?" I countered, my resolve unwavering. As I announced my intention to divorce him, Robert's shock was palpable. "Talking about divorce at a time like this? What do you mean?" he protested, his desperation mounting. But my decision was final. That's not my problem. I was planning to divorce even without this incident, I declared, refusing to be swayed by his pleas. In that moment, as Robert grappled with the consequences of his actions, I knew that justice would prevail, and I would find the closure I sought. "I have proof of your infidelity, and I'll seek hefty compensation in the divorce trial," I asserted firmly, confronting Robert with the consequences of his actions. Robert's response was riddled with fear. "Compensation in a divorce trial? How can I possibly pay that? If I get arrested, I'll lose my job too," he lamented, grappling with the weight of his transgressions. But I refused to be swayed by his excuses. That's your own fault for committing a crime. You should have thought twice before doing such things, I admonished, refusing to accept his attempts to evade responsibility. Defeated, Robert knelt down, his facade crumbling under the weight of his guilt. I was tricked, he confessed, attempting to shift blame onto his mistress, Amelia. It's all her fault, he protested, his desperation evident. But his attempts to absolve himself of responsibility only fueled my anger. Tricked or not, I don't care. I'll never forget you saying I should have gone to the other world. That was your true feeling, I countered, refusing to let him escape accountability. Robert's protest fell on deaf ears. That's a lie. I didn't mean it, he pleaded, his desperation mounting as he realized the severity of his actions. But I remained resolute. I never want to have anything to do with you again, Robert. I'll consult a lawyer about the divorce. So never contact me again, I declared, severing ties with him once and for all. Despite his protests, Robert's resistance crumbled in the face of impending consequences. As he was escorted from the hospital room by the police, the truth of his crimes was laid bare for all to see. The next day, news of Robert's arrest spread like wildfire. Once celebrated as a kind and grieving husband, he was now vilified as a criminal who plotted murder for insurance money. Over a decade later, I learned of his release from prison. Struggling to find employment due to his criminal record, he had been reduced to working at a grocery store, a far cry from his former life. Despite the hardship he faced, I found no sympathy for him. His downfall served as a stark reminder of the consequences of his actions, and I refused to forgive him for the pain he caused. Resigning from my job and starting anew in a different state, I found solace in teaching piano once again. Remarried to a kind and honest man, I embraced a new chapter of happiness with my family. Reflecting on my past, I vowed never to judge people by their appearance again. My current husband may not be conventionally handsome, but his character far surpasses outward beauty. It's a lesson I'll carry with me for the rest of my days.